The Hoka Cielo X1 had potential, but it fell short for many due to its weight and the upper. Luckily, the Cielo X1 2.0 fixes these issues, but it may also create some new ones. Just a quick disclaimer that Hoka did send me these shoes to review, but all my thoughts and opinions are my own. Anyways, let's dive into this review, starting with the upper. It now uses a jacquard mesh instead of a knit and has what I think is a much improved tongue and ankle collar. The collar is lightly padded and I found it to be much more comfortable than V1. I had no issues with fit or lockdown. The upper felt secure on my foot with no rubbing or heel slip. I went for my usual men's size 12 and had a thumbs width at the end. I'll mention the laces real quick too. The Cielo X1 V1 had like these ribbony laces that didn't tie very well and weren't the best. With some of the later colorways of the Cielo X1 V1, they did update these though, and they actually changed them to be the exact same as what's found on the Cielo X1 2.0, and I'm happy with this change. Haven't had any issues with these laces coming undone at all. All right, now let's move on down to this midsole. There are definitely some big changes here. By World Athletics measurements, it's still 40 millimeters in the heel, 33 in the forefoot with a 7 millimeter drop. However, the thickest part of the heel is actually 46 millimeters of foam, making it very cushioned. It still uses 100% PEBA foam in the midsole with a tweaked winged carbon plate. Both did get updated. The shoe is now even more aggressive. The biggest change I noticed was in the heel. The cutout also changed from the outside lateral part of the shoe to the inside medial part. I personally found the more aggressive heel rocker and medial cutout to make this shoe very unstable. When I was landing in the back half of the shoe, it felt very wobbly, almost like I was fighting the shoe. This wasn't an issue I had with V1, however. When I was picking up the pace and landing more on the front half of my shoe, it did feel much smoother and less unstable. One other thing that I noticed with these shoes that I think just applies to me and my gait probably, but I noticed it kind of took the load off my Achilles and my calves and put it more on my quads and my knees. It kind of felt like I was running downhill all the time when running in these shoes. I thought I would just share that. So overall, I thought that the new midsole definitely felt faster and lighter than V1. However, it definitely is a lot less stable. All right, now let's talk about this outsole. The outsole has less rubber coverage, which saves weight. It is now 7.4 ounces in a men's size 9, which is almost an ounce and a half lighter than V1. It is also now a sticky rubber formula to help with grip. So far, I haven't had any issues with the grip of the outsole. It's better than some of the other super shoes on the market, so I can't complain. All right, now instead of doing a run type stoplight, this is a race shoe, so we're gonna do a race type stoplight. So for the 5K, 10K distances, the rocker is really snappy and smooth on the shoe. However, there is just way too much cushion underfoot for my preference at those distances, and it's a little heavy for something that short. I want as light as I possibly can. Moving on to half marathon, I give this a yellow. It has a very comfortable upper that I like for the half marathon. It has that cushion and that rocker, which are good for half marathon distances. However, like I said, this shoe can be very unstable, especially when you're making turns. So I prefer if the half marathon was pretty straight, didn't have a lot of curves in it, because I did have to really slow down when cornering in this shoe. Full marathon, I give this shoe a red. For me personally, my form tends to break down the last kind of 10K, 5K of a marathon. And with just how unstable this shoe gets for me, anytime I land pretty much this back half of the shoe, it gets super wobbly and unstable and doesn't feel smooth. So I would really have to force myself to get up on my toes, even though when I'm dying. So just unfortunately, this isn't my top choice for a marathon due to that instability. Other than that, though, it definitely does have the cushion I'm looking for and a comfortable upper that I like for that distance. All right, now let's go ahead and do a few quick comparisons. The first shoe I'm going to compare it to is the Cielo X1 V1. So like I mentioned already, this shoe felt a lot more stable for me, especially in the heel. It's a little bit wider back there. It doesn't have that medial cutout, and I think it worked better with my stride no matter the distance or the race distance. I would prefer this one for a marathon over the Cielo X1 2. However, I do really like the upper on this version, and I do like the weight on it. It's definitely noticeably lighter than V1. I wish that there's something in between the two where you get the same weight savings of V2, but it had that more stable heel of V1. Next up is the Rocket X2 from Hoka. This is their other marathon racer, and this is actually my preference from them for the marathon. Feels way more stable. The rocker works much better with my stride, but still has that bouncy energetic foam and that carbon plate in there. The upper isn't my favorite, but it's not bad. I do prefer the upper more on the Cielo X1 too, but overall, this has my win for the marathon distance. This rocker, again, just doesn't really agree with my stride, and it's just too stable for how I run. Now, another shoe with a crazy heel geometry is the Wave Rebellion Pro 3 from Mizuno. Both these shoes have very aggressive heel rockers that make them technically legal for World Athletics, but they do have way more foam underneath them than 40 millimeters at their thickest part. This shoe is even worse for heel strikers in my opinion. You really fight with it. There's just way too much foam back there. Once you're landing midfoot and forefoot, it feels a lot smoother. But if this shoe was maybe too much for you, you might like the Cielo X1 better. It does have that kind of more aggressive rocker, but less extreme. Overall though, neither of these shoes really work for my running style or preferences. So the Cielo X1 2 is lighter, faster, and more comfortable. However, this new geometry and midsole may be unfriendly to heel strikers, and I found it to be more unstable overall. This is just how I felt the shoe worked with my stride and my preferences. I do know a lot of people that are more forefoot strikers that really loved this shoe, didn't have the stability issues I was having. So it just kind of depends on you as a runner and your form and your foot strike. So keep an open mind there. But for me personally, this isn't gonna be my go-to for the marathon race distance. But I want to hear from you. Are you gonna give it a shot? You're gonna pick one up? Have you already tried it? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on running.